Mistakes in Civ 6, like real life, can range from simple, like not setting an alarm, or major, like a gender studies college degree. The biggest mistake in Civilization 6, right at the level of not bringing condoms to a house party, is not settling enough cities. How many cities are enough? Well, every time this rat-skunk hybrid says a country's name, you settle a city. That's how many. Before we get started, stay tuned until the end of the video for another bonus tip that really ties in with this mistake. Using my advanced PhD in mathematics, which is about as real and existent as girlfriends at another school, we can compare Civ 6 to even, let's say, Civ 5, why not, on how the number of cities determines wins. Civ 5 gave you a huge penalty from settling too many cities, cause we don't do the mass alive here. But Civ 6 took off the gloves and said do what you will, and do what you will, we did. The thing with Civ 6 is that it doesn't have nearly as large a penalty for the amount of cities compared to its predecessor. And when the devs told the players the new limiting factor for peaceful playthroughs was amenities instead of global happiness, we all collectively laughed our asses off as we geared up for the OG Battle Royale. Without any big limits as amenities work per city and really aren't hard to secure, there is nothing stopping you as the more cities you have, the more yields you can make. Obviously, as number goes higher, number gets bigger, and like my current mental state, that's first grade math mindset right there. And no, loyalty does about as much to conquest limiting as M. Night Shyamalan did for Avatar's popularity. But that's not all, not even half of it. After deciding to take away the limits of city construction with global happiness and penalties really Thanos snapped out of existence, like a Civlifer non-subscriber's chance at success in life, they decided to add a limit to the amount of science each city makes. Instead of population being the main factor with libraries and universities giving you up to 1 or even more science per population, Civ 6 you get 0.3 science per population, which is about as tiny as, goddamn ant. I don't know, I didn't have a joke for this one. And it's less about population now and more about districts. And since you can only have one campus or one theater square, holy site, industrial zone per city, the gloves were completely off, panties adjusted, and dongs whipped out, and whoever had the biggest stick dominated the game, as you could take cities from your neighbors, force yourself to settle farther, and go into your neighbor's zone of control of sorts, and the more cities you had, the more campuses you could get, or the more theater squares, and therefore the higher yields you could make. It used to be that even if a Civ took out all their neighbors in Civ 5, you could still easily stay caught up due to all the penalties they were suffering, and that all the yields in the world cannot make up for the missing gray brain matter like the AI seems to have. Now, you either get cities or there's no hope but to pity. Socrates. So yeah, the fact that you need more cities than everyone else and the limits are completely removed, how do you get more cities than Arabs have babies? With two ways of expanding being domination and settler expansion. Either way, you want to do any of this at the start of the game, in my opinion, around the ancient and classical eras mainly, as waiting to the medieval or Renaissance era, while you would get stronger cities from domination especially, would make things a lot harder to do because the AI loves spamming settlers even if it's just a one-tile snow island. Unless you're Babylon. In which case, I mean, nothing can stop Babylon, so just do whatever you want. So you can either beeline early empire and then get out the ancestral hall to spam more settlers than America in the 1800s, or you could go down to the warpath and spam out more units than the cost of bread in 1920s Germany. Either way, you'll want to start from turn 1, and I'll break this into sort of two parts, I guess. Firstly, settling. Easy. You want to do this when no one is around, although it is less efficient than domination due to the fact that A, units will be cheaper than actually building settlers as they can get expensive, and units can theoretically give you an infinite amount of cities. As long as you keep them alive and upgraded, you won't have to build any more units throughout the entire game. But in games where the surrounding area is as barren and dry as Ben Shapiro's wife, that's your only option, as saying you'll conquer nothing at all will make about as much sense as Columbus saying he found India. In this instance, get to 6 population as soon as possible while building an army to deal with barbs and then get a monument. monument, early empire, get that boost, and then get that civic, plug in colonization, and start spamming after you get provision with Magnus, which if you have secret societies, you should already have at this point. After that, you want to get state workforce and political philosophy before getting Ancestral Hall with colonization policy card, and then you start spamming out those cities as quick as possible. Start spamming after you get colonization with Magnus, but once you get Ancestral Hall, that's when it just turns to another level. Simple. Work from the outer frontiers and try to settle as far away as possible in so no one can steal your outer cities, because if you start with your nearest tiles and then settle outward, you might miss a couple of cities, although it isn't really the worst thing in the world. Do this especially if Russia is in the game, both due to their extra tile mechanics and because, well, cities should be settled as close to each other as possible, like a World Championship swinger orgy game, because it lets you A, get more cities, and B, get better district adjacencies, as the more districts of any city adjacent to your own, the higher the yield will be per district. Secondly, Warpath and Genocide. My favorite. Beeline ironworking, because if the AI gets walls, you're more boned than a humerus. And then settle 2 cities and get at least 1 iron source, preferably 2. Get up some warriors while going for political philosophy for oligarchy. Get 3 to 4 warriors, 3 to 4 slingers, upgrade them into swordsmen and archers respectively, and get a battering ram. Archery and masonry are really easy to get after you get ironworking, so that shouldn't be a problem. Get the Eurekas and Agoge with craftsmanship before building too many units in order to get cheaper build costs for your warriors, archers, and etc. And then you'll upgrade your army, get a great general if you have the production for it to get the encampment and great general project, before walking up to your nearest neighbor, take his phone, post the N-word on his Twitter using his phone, and then use that as a casus belli to declare the war. Unless it's Jedwiga. She can dominate me. But yeah, those are the 2 main routes of expansions. You could wait until later to dominate, Renaissance, Industrial Era, but the longer you wait, the longer you give the enemies time to build up, and while you could definitely still win, especially if you have a sound enough strategy or unique unit, or you want to have a fun game with, maybe 5 to 8 cities, as this is a game after all, and fun should be the top priority, for spanking deity harder than vodka drunk fathers, you'll want as many cities as you can possibly get. But what if you can't do anything? What if you're near an enemy civ and you failed to break their back like Johnny Sins? What then? Well, restart probably, usually, unless you're like really good at the game. But if you want to take out a larger enemy, do what other smaller nations throughout history have done and ask others for support like a little bit. Just walk up to a couple neighbors and 10 gold should do the trick to get them to join your war against those guys, unless either A, your enemy is friendly with the neighbors, or B, they're just super strong, like 2,000 military strength or whatever. In that case, tech up, and then you could try for a medieval and Renaissance era push, and hope you have some niter or iron nearby, and subscribe to the channel to not only get better luck in your games, but also to not miss out on future content. And finally, I was going to end off the video here, but I do have another sort of secret big mistake that a secret society or cult told me about that does have to do with the amount of cities you settle. And that is, how far away should I settle the cities? Now, a lot of people will say it depends, and you want to get the best cities possible, best districts. No, it's as close to each other as you possibly can get them. Because like I said, most of the game comes from how many districts you have. And again, you're still going to want to settle like the amazing districts and whatnot, but this really doesn't limit you from doing that. Because getting even a +1 campus adjacent type district, which honestly by the mid to late game should be +2 at least, is still worth it, even at the expense of getting an amazing city and instead you get 2 decent ones, because again, you're going to have 2 campuses, 2 libraries, 2 research labs, 2 universities, and the closer your cities are, the more you can make use of coal power plants, because they give power to every city within 6 tiles. So again, when you are trying to settle cities, try to settle them as close to each other as possible, because you'll get more districts, which for any victory type, for a culture victory, you'll have more great work slots, science victories, you'll have more science, religious victory, you'll have more faith from holy sites. There is no single type of victory, even diplomatic, as pagodas with the religion, or even the monarchy's walls diplo favor bonus type thing, is still absolutely amazing for a diplo victory. So no matter the victory type, if you want to win games easier or just start winning higher difficulties, getting getting the most amount of cities, at least 8 to 10, is going to be the best way to do it. To confuse the people who haven't made it this far yet, type down below what philosophical ideas scare you. For me, it's Schrodinger's cat. Like, how the fuck do you know if the cat's dead or not? Like, is it diseased? Have you not fed it? Bro, what's going on? I'm calling PETA. Anyways, check out this other video where I start with the Bermuda Triangle as my capital, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.